The morning was quiet. Too quiet for a small-town cemetery just after dawn. But in that stillness, there was a presence. A small brown shape, curled beside an old, moss-covered gravestone. His fur was matted, his ribs slightly visible beneath the coat that once glistened with pride. He didn't move when the wind rustled the trees. He didn't flinch when the groundskeeper's cart rattled by. He just lay there waiting. You see, this wasn't just any dog. This was Max. And Max had a story that would break even the hardest heart. Max had once been the shadow to a man named Thomas Burke, a retired firefighter, known to everyone in town as a quiet hero. Thomas had saved people from burning buildings, pulled cats from storm drains, and 10 years ago, rescued a terrified, shivering puppy abandoned in a cardboard box behind a gas station. He named him Max. And from that moment, they were inseparable. Thomas didn't have children. His wife had passed years earlier. Max was his world, and Thomas was Max's. They went everywhere together. Morning walks through the park, fishing by the lake, and visits to the fire station where Thomas volunteered on weekends. Max would sit proudly in the passenger seat of the old red truck, tail wagging, ears perked, as if he were guarding the town himself. The bond they shared was the kind you didn't see often. It wasn't spoken. It was felt. In the silence, the glances, the way Max would rest his head on Thomas's foot while he read the newspaper. Then the unthinkable happened. One rainy evening, Thomas never came home. He had collapsed while delivering firewood to an elderly neighbor. A heart attack, they said. He died instantly. The town mourned. But Max didn't understand mourning. Not the way humans do. He only knew that Thomas was gone. The funeral was simple, respectful. Dozens came. But Max never left. From the moment Thomas was laid to rest beneath the old oak tree near the western edge of Greenwood Cemetery, Max began his vigil. Day after day, night after night. Rain. Snow. Heat. Max stayed. At first, the townsfolk tried to take him home. They brought food, soft blankets, even a new collar. But every time someone gently led him away, Max would return before sunrise. He'd find the grave, circle once, and lie back down, nose tucked under tail, as if protecting something sacred. Local kids began calling him the grave guardian. Others simply called him Loyal. And the story began to spread, first through town, then across counties. News reporters came with cameras. They filmed him lying there, eyes watching but not reacting, as if he were waiting for his best friend to return. He's guarding Thomas, one old woman whispered to a reporter. Or maybe he's just trying to feel close to him. Weeks passed, and Max didn't leave. Some nights were bitterly cold. Volunteers set up a small shelter a few feet away, but he never used it. He always slept beside the grave. One evening, just before the first snowfall, a young boy named Eli came to visit. He had lost his father in a fire 2 years ago. His mom told him about Max and thought the visit might help. Eli sat near the grave, a few feet from Max. They didn't speak. They didn't move. They just sat together, both carrying something heavy. And for the first time in weeks, Max let someone touch him. Eli reached out slowly, fingers trembling, and rested his hand on Max's back. The dog didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned into the boy. Just a little. As if to say, I know. I miss him too. It was a moment no one captured on camera. But everyone who heard about it felt it. The town began to change after that. People started coming not just to see Max, but to sit with him, to talk to him, to remember their own losses. It became a kind of healing ritual. The cemetery turned into a quiet place of connection. All because of one dog who wouldn't leave his person's side. But one night something changed. And that's where our next chapter begins. The wind howled louder than usual that night. The temperature dropped sharply, and a frost crept over the headstones like a silent veil. Max lay in his usual place, nose to the ground, eyes half closed but alert. But something was different. His ears twitched. His breathing was shallow. He was older now. Tired. His body had weathered the seasons, but grief had its own toll. The groundskeeper, Mr. Keller, had been watching Max closely. A war veteran with eyes that had seen too much, Keller knew the signs of fading life. That night, as the cold crept in, he approached Max slowly with a thermos of warm broth and a soft towel. Come on now, old boy, Keller whispered, kneeling beside him. You've done enough. You don't have to keep watching. Max didn't lift his head, but he didn't move away either. Keller placed the towel over Max's back and set the thermos down beside him, sighing deeply. You miss him, huh? Me too. We all do. He stayed a while, not saying much, just watching the stars above the dark branches. Then, with a final pat, he walked away, leaving the old dog to his vigil. But that night, something stirred in the darkness. A cry. A high-pitched, desperate sound. Not human. Max's ears perked up instantly. There it was again, soft, distant, but unmistakable. A whimper. Max pushed himself up with effort. His limbs ached, but his instincts were stronger. He followed the sound slowly, weaving through the headstones, past the oak tree, and toward the fence line that bordered the forest. There, shivering under a bush, was a tiny black puppy, muddy, thin, and alone. She yelped when she saw Max, trying to back away, but her legs were too weak. Max stood still, then took one careful step forward, and then another. He lowered his head, nose close to hers. The puppy stared, trembling. Then, without warning, she crawled toward him and buried herself against his chest. He didn't move, just closed his eyes, as if remembering something long buried. By morning, Keller returned to find the two dogs lying side by side near Thomas's grave. Max curled around the puppy protectively. Keller smiled sadly. Well, I'll be. News spread fast. Max had taken in a new friend. No one knew where the puppy had come from. No collar. No chip. Just a tiny, abandoned soul who somehow found her way to a grave guarded by loyalty. They named her Hope. And from that moment, Max changed. He began eating again. Not much, but enough. He started walking a little farther each morning, with the puppy trailing close behind. It was like watching a fading candle catch a new flame. Max was still old. Still tired. But now he had purpose. He wasn't just guarding a grave anymore. He was teaching someone what loyalty looked like. Hope followed him everywhere. She watched how he sat beside the gravestone. How he responded to people with quiet dignity. How he never barked, never begged, never chased the birds. Just waited. Listened. People who visited said it was like watching a grandfather and his grandchild. Quiet. Respectful. Loving. And Max was never alone again. One afternoon, as golden leaves tumbled from the trees, Eli returned with his mother. He hadn't seen Max in a few weeks and was eager to check in. He knelt beside the grave, brushing leaves off the headstone. Hope trotted over and sat by him instantly, tail wagging. Hey girl, Eli smiled, rubbing behind her ears. Where's Max? She looked toward the back fence. And there he was, walking slowly, legs stiff, but head held high. When Max reached them, he didn't lay down right away. He looked at Eli and licked his hand gently. Eli blinked, surprised. I missed you too. Then Max circled once, lay beside the grave, and let out a slow, tired breath. Hope curled up next to him, eyes half closed. And the three of them sat there, until the sun dipped below the trees. Later that evening, as the shadows stretched long across the cemetery, Max lifted his head one final time. He looked at Hope. He looked at the grave. And then he looked at the sky. What happened next would stay with the town forever. And that's where the final chapter begins. The next morning, the cemetery was still. The kind of stillness that felt sacred. Keller arrived just after sunrise, as he always did. But something in the air felt heavier. More final. He walked to the grave, holding 2 bowls of food. One for Max, one for Hope. Hope was there, lying quietly next to the headstone. She looked up as Keller approached. Her eyes were soft and sad. Max wasn't breathing. His body lay curled beside the grave, just as he always had, but this time, there was no movement. No flicker of the ears. No lift of the head. Keller knelt down slowly, placing a hand gently on Max's side. Still warm. Still peaceful. Tears welled in the old man's eyes as he whispered, You did good, buddy. You did real good. By the time word spread through town, a crowd had quietly gathered at the cemetery gates. No one spoke. No one needed to. They came with flowers, small notes, and quiet hearts. Children brought toys. One girl left a fireman's badge drawn in crayon. Someone placed a photo of Max and Thomas in a frame beside the stone. And then something beautiful happened. The mayor arrived. With him, a team of volunteers. They erected a small statue near Thomas's grave. A bronze figure of Max lying at rest, his head turned toward the headstone, with Hope at his side. A plaque beneath it read, In memory of Max, the loyal guardian. He waited not because he had to, but because love never leaves. Hope was adopted by Eli's family. But every Sunday, she returned to the grave. She would sit quietly beside the statue of Max, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for hours, watching the wind, listening to the trees, as if remembering the one who taught her what love meant. Eli, now older, often joined her. And whenever someone new asked about the statue, he'd smile and tell them the story. He was just a dog, but he showed this whole town what it means to stay, to love, to remember. Max's story became more than a tale of grief. It became a legend of loyalty. Schools taught it during Character Week. Firefighters wore small pins shaped like Max's paw. People who had lost loved ones would visit the cemetery, not for sadness, but for healing. Because in a world that moves too fast, forgets too easily, and often turns away from pain, Max stayed. He stayed until his very last breath. Not because anyone asked him to, but because his heart told him that love doesn't end at goodbye. And that's the moral he left behind. True love is loyal. True loyalty is silent. And some heroes have 4 legs and wait beside a grave. Max never spoke a word in his life, but his silence taught an entire town how to love deeper, grieve openly, and hold on to the memories that matter. And in the end, that's what makes a life unforgettable. Goodbye, Max. You were more than just a dog. You were the heart of this town.